So we recently made a video discussing what the least known countries of the world are. To produce this data, we used the results of a quiz that had been taken around 27 million times. Although this is not a perfect method to discover the world's least known countries, it gives us a pretty decent estimate. So what about the world's most and least known capital cities? Again, we will be using the results of a quiz which has been taken by over 3.3 million people. So first, we will start off with the most well-known capital cities on Earth, before moving on to the least known capitals. So according to the results of this online quiz, Paris of France is the most well-known capital city on Earth, with a score of 92%. This comes to no surprise, as the City of Love was the second most visited city in 2019, with over 19 million visitors. Paris is also very easy to spell, and perhaps one of the most iconic cities on the planet. In joint second place, we have London and Rome of the UK and Italy respectively, with 89%. Again, two very popular European capitals. They receive huge amounts of tourists every year and are home to some of the most iconic and well-known attractions on the planet. Both are easy to spell and are usually learnt about in some sort of school curriculum, meaning they are very well known around the world. Also, with Paris receiving the highest score on this quiz, once your brain has thought of this city, the next city or cities that will likely pop into your head are other highly populated, iconic European capitals, e.g. Rome and London. Everything that we have just said then applies for our next two capital cities, Berlin and Madrid, scoring 88 and 85% respectively. Spain and Madrid are two very well-known places. My thought process for why Madrid doesn't rank as high as its European counterparts is that some people may think that Barcelona is the capital of Spain, as it is arguably a more well-known and iconic city. Next up is a capital city which doesn't fit into the narrative we have been talking about in this video so far. It is Washington DC of the United States with a score of 85%. Washington DC, although not particularly a bucket list city for most people visiting the US, is the capital city of the world's richest and most powerful country. It is home to perhaps one of the most iconic buildings on Earth, the White House. What goes on within this building quite literally has an impact on the rest of the world. The fact that you are watching this video means you likely have an interest in geography, right? So we all know that Washington DC is the capital of the US. However, it wouldn't surprise me if many of the general public thought that New York City was the capital, as it is by far the most well-known and iconic city in not just the States, but perhaps the whole world. So perhaps this is why it scored a little bit lower than other cities. Next up, we have Moscow, Russia with 84%. Moscow is a very important city. It is the capital city of the world's largest country, and the country with the most nuclear weapons, which could arguably make them one of, if not the most powerful countries on the planet. Moscow is also very highly populated, and ranks 7th for the city with the most billionaires. When you look at a map, Russia is so large that it is impossible to miss, hence why I believe Moscow ranks so highly in this quiz. Next we have Athens of Greece with 82%. Now this one did take me by surprise. Although Athens is a very famous city, mainly due to its historical importance, I really didn't think it would rank so highly. Greece isn't particularly a large country either, so it doesn't really stand out on a world map. And finally, we have Dublin and Tokyo of Ireland and Japan respectively with 81%. Dublin, although not the largest or most influential city on Earth, is still pretty well known. And as many people guessed London of the UK correctly, it is likely that they move on to the next closest country, which is kind of Ireland. Tokyo, on the other hand, is the world's most populated city. It is extremely iconic and is well known across the planet. I'm actually surprised that this city didn't rank higher. But anyway, Tokyo takes the crown for the most well-known Asian capital. Every other capital, excluding Washington DC, has been within Europe so far. There is likely a European or Western bias throughout this quiz, as I highly doubt countries who speak little to no English will be taking this quiz. So that is the world's most well-known capitals. Let's now take a look at the opposite end of the spectrum, the capitals that are the least well-known. Before even looking, I can guarantee that these capitals will be in the Pacific, the Caribbean, or small African countries. Countries that most people haven't even heard of, let alone know what their capitals are. So sitting rock bottom of this list we have Gurulmud, the capital city of Palau, with just 13%. This comes to no surprise as Palau is a very isolated, unknown country. The capital doesn't have a particularly catchy or easy name to spell either. The population of this country is around 18,000. Of that, around 300 live in the capital, making it the least populated capital on Earth. Next up, we have 5 capital cities, all with 15% each. They are South Tarawa, Halika, Nuku'alofa, Majuro, and Honiara, of Kiribati, Micronesia, Tonga, Marshall Islands, and the Solomon Islands respectively. All of these countries are tiny isolated nations located within the Pacific. Countries with very small populations that most people know very little about. Again, none of these names are particularly easy to spell or remember. Next up, we have 7 capital cities, all with 16% each. All of these countries so far, as I predicted earlier, are either island countries in the Pacific or small African countries. Tuvalu, another Pacific country, was the only country to score 17%. Its capital is Funafuti. Basseterre, the capital of St. Kitts and Nevis, is the lowest scoring country that isn't in Africa or the Pacific, with 18%, along with many other countries. The lowest scoring capital city that isn't in the Caribbean, Pacific, or Africa belongs to Naypyidaw, the capital city of Myanmar. Naypyidaw is a very notorious city. It is a planned capital city, meaning that it was constructed for the purpose of being a capital. So far, the capital is a ghost town. It was built to house millions of people, but one slight problem, those millions of people haven't yet turned up. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, is quite an unknown country that is well and truly overshadowed by its more popular neighbours like Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia. I personally don't know a single person in real life that has visited Myanmar. The lowest scoring capital city in South America is Paramaribo of Suriname with a score of just 28%. Europe performed quite well in this quiz. The lowest scoring capital is Chisinau of Moldova. Moldova is one of the least populated countries on the continent, and its capital doesn't have a particularly easy name to remember, especially with the accents above the letters. So there we have it, the most and least well-known capitals around the world according to this quiz. We know it's not the perfect methodology for solving this topic, but it definitely gives us a rough estimate. I'll leave a link to the quiz below, let us know how you got on. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you very soon in our next video.